know if Jaden is in here or she left or not, but that was killer. Wasn't it? That was awesome. You need to Jaden, I mean, they all do a great job, but that was awesome. So, yeah, I'm kind of feeling like I'm out of place here because, I was gone a week, and Lori took over and she did a phenomenal job. So, I just told her she should probably just finish it on out. What do you guys think?
That's a trick question.
No, we have been in the series, Preparing the Way, and all this month, and God has called you to be like John the Baptist. That's right. No, you don't have to eat locusts and honey, just to make that clear. But He's called you to prepare the way. And my mic I think she used my mic last week and it's all backwards, so sorry. To prepare the way for Jesus in the hearts of those that you will come in contact with. The enemy is fighting you at every corner. Why? Because he knows if he can distract you from this mission, he wins. It's hard to pull someone out of a ditch when you're stuck in one yourself. And so that's the whole point. God has given you everything you need to win that fight. I think I need to say that again. God has given you everything you need to win that fight. Not just win, but complete your mission. What is the mission? To prepare the way for Jesus in the hearts of those whom you will come in contact with. We have attempted to give you some of the most important tools to keep in your belt to win this fight. And week 1, we looked at how to deal with fear and anxiety. Week 2, we talked about how to handle anger and trauma, jealousy, bitterness, as well as the need to forgive. And that's a tough one at times, isn't it? But yet so very necessary. And then last week, Lori shared on boundaries. I loved the boulders and backpacks. How many of you guys enjoyed that? I thought that was so awesome of an illustration that she did. Yes, I did listen to her message. I did. And she did a phenomenal job. But yeah, that boulders and backpacks, what an illustration that some people, and maybe you can identify who you are. Can I do it? How many would be bold enough to say that you're the one that tends to carry the boulder? Not asking for help, taking on too much that you know you shouldn't. Okay. How many? I'm not going to give. And then, or maybe you're like one of those that want to put down the backpack and want to unload the things that we should be carrying. So that's really important. But tonight, we're going to shift gears just a little bit. Have you ever felt stuck? Oh, I'm not saying stuck like as in physically stuck, but like no matter what you do, you can't seem to gain any ground. Maybe you feel like you're just spinning your wheels. Or maybe it's like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. In fact, there's one individual tonight, I won't name names, Scott, that said, man, I just can't get a break. Tonight, we want to talk about some ways we can unlock our potential, to use it to overcome some of the obstacles that might be in your way, keeping you from the potential of what God has called you to do in preparing the way for Jesus in your world, in the people that you come in contact with. Because you're the only one that can affect your world. There are people that you come in contact with in a certain context that only you do. Whether that's driving a candy truck, or that's putting gutters on a house, or that's stocking shelves in Walmart, or whatever you do. There are people you rub shoulders with and have relationships with that only you have in that kind of context and in that way. And you can have such a unique light in those ways.
My turn?
Your turn.
Okay. As a counselor, I talk to a lot of people that usually when they come into counseling, they're hurting in some way. And depending on what they're coming to see me for, I will often ask a really common question. I will ask people to name 10 things about themselves that they like. A lot of times, you can hear crickets. It's very hard. And then when they think about it for a minute, they'll start telling me things they're good at. I'm good at sports. I'm a good parent. I do this, I do that. They're telling me all the things that they do, but they don't speak to the essence of the core of who they are, because that's really, really, really hard. And sometimes I'll say, take a week, go think about this, come back. And not very many people can give me 10. I'm usually, doing pretty good if I can get 2 or 3 things out of most people. But if I ask you, list 10 things that you hate about yourself, you'd be able to pop those off so fast. And a lot of times those negative thoughts about ourselves become a core belief. And a core belief is kind of the essence of how we see ourselves, how we view other people, how we view the world, how we look at our future. So I'm going to list some negative core beliefs just that I encounter with people that I work with. I'm just going to list them really fast. And I'm curious if any of you can find yourself in this set of core beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I don't belong. I'm not lovable. I'm not smart enough. I'm a failure. I'm ugly. I'm powerless. I should have known better. Or I have no purpose. If we entertain those negative core beliefs, first I should ask, did anybody find themselves in that list? I sure did. I talked to 2 people this week. It's kind of been heavy on my heart because they had a lot of these negative core values. And if if the devil can convince you that you have no worth and you have no purpose, that leads to depression and often even thoughts of suicide. And I had 2 people so steeped in depression and these negative core values that they were actually considering ending their life. But here's what I want you to think about. We should never judge a tree by just one season. Trees all develop at different times. They mature at different times. They bear fruit at different times. And sometimes a tree can be flooded, and maybe it doesn't produce the best fruit. Maybe it experiences a drought. Maybe some disease that will hinder the fruit. But that doesn't mean that tree is not capable of producing fruit in the future. Sometimes our self-worth can limit our potential. And I want to talk about Caleb here a little bit. So Kevin's going to kind of set the scene for us.
So your self-worth can limit your potential. Moses, in a story of the Israelites, sends out one leader from each tribe to enter the land of Canaan, to explore the land. Some versions of your Bible, or maybe the Sunday school class version of it is to spy out the land. How many know the story I'm referring to? All right, you're getting there. All right. So Moses sends out 12 leaders from each tribe, one from each tribe of the land of Canaan, to explore the land, to bring back a report. The report they brought back to Moses was the land was indeed bountiful, flowing with milk and honey. They even brought back a cluster of grapes so large that it took two of them to even carry it. That's a cluster. But they also said that the people living there were powerful. They said their towns are large. They're fortified. They said they even saw giants there. And the emphasis was on the latter instead of the former. They said, oh yeah, their land is great, flowing with milk and honey, but there's giants there. There's no way. Which brings us to Numbers 13:33, we saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and this is the part I love, and we looked the same to them. So not only were they identifying with the fact that these guys were giants, but they were identifying with the fact that the giants saw them as grasshoppers.
And, when they saw themselves as grasshoppers, they really got things twisted inside their head. And they started looking through what Pastor Larry talked about this morning, the wrong lens. I'm going to refer to that tonight as a mirror. So they started looking at the Anakites, these legendary giants of Canaan, and said, those giants, they're bigger than we are. Their self-image is what limited their potential. Did you know they didn't question for a minute how big God was, or if God was capable of providing for them? They didn't question, if God was able to give them the things that they need. But they shrunk themselves down to the level of their circumstances, and they didn't go any further. Because until you see yourself created in the image of God, you're going to stay stuck. The way you see yourself is really important, because you can create a reality in your head that's contradictory to your true identity. So even though they'd seen the hand of God over and over and over again, they still saw those giants as insurmountable. They didn't believe that they could move forward. So they died in the wilderness because of it. Let me ask you something. Why would you choose to see yourself through the eyes of the enemy? Why would you choose to give your enemy a mirror to show you who you are? You know what? We pick the worst things about ourselves. The things we can't control, the things we don't like, our flaws. And we use those things as a mirror to get a sense of who we are, and then we lower our ambition to that level. And we forget that we're made in the image of God because we're too busy looking at ourselves through the eyes of the enemy. God never really promised us a life free of challenges. Does anybody out there have a life free of challenges? If you are, I'd like to meet you. Right? But he does.
I don't see any hands.
Okay, I didn't see any either. But here's what you have to think. When you look at yourself through God's eyes, instead of looking at the challenge that's in front of you, I wonder, what has God placed in front of me that's going to cause me to triumph? If I look at a mountain that's really, really big, I wonder what God knows about me that I don't know about me, where he knows that I'm going to overcome. So the word of God's our mirror, and if he puts something in front of me, he already knows how it's going to turn out. I think about David. He faced a giant with a lousy slingshot and a stone. And what did he say? You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you. What did he say? In the name of the Lord. David's maker was his mirror. And he had confidence that God had placed everything he needed inside to face his giant. That's kind of like Caleb in the story that Kevin just talked about. Because he had a different mirror, and he walks up to Joshua, and he says, do you remember when we were at the edge of the promise, and the people all saw themselves as small, and they held up a mirror to the rest of the nation? And because they saw themselves as small, the nation also saw themselves as small. Guys, be careful who you surround yourself with. Some people will belittle you to the point that you start to believe those things about yourself. But you're not what they said. Because if they are not the person that created you, they don't get to be your mirror. Everybody's acceptance is not really a blessing if you think about that. Because some people will give us validation for things that will actually ruin our vision of who we are. God gives us a different mirror. It's different than things we think. It's different than our experiences. It's different than our failures or what other people think about us. But we forget oftentimes what we read in the Word. I know I do. And we reflect what's inside of us, and as a result, we stay outside of God's promise. In James 1:23 through 24, it says, "For if you listen to the word and you don't obey, it's like glancing at your face in a, what? In a mirror. You see yourself, you walk away, and then you forget what you look like." Guys, we do this all the time. We come into church, we get in the presence of God like we did tonight in beautiful worship, and then we go out and we forget who we are when we go out into the world. You know, the most important mirror is not the one I look at every morning when I'm getting ready. And you know, I can spend some time in front of the mirror. Kevin can vouch for that. You know, you brush your teeth. You know, we girls, we're putting on our makeup, and we're fixing our hair, and we're doing all of those things. And I will spend all that time in front of that mirror and leave the house with any old crummy attitude because I've spent 0 minutes looking in God's mirror. And sometimes we also see each other through other people's insecurity, because their treatment of us is not really necessarily what they think about us. It's what they think about, you know, what they think about themselves. So if somebody is trying to make you feel inferior, how do you think they feel? So their rejection is a reflection, not of you, but of themselves. And if you let them hold up a mirror, if you let a giant hold up a mirror, you start to believe that that's your reality. But that's not how it really is. Not everyone's acceptance is a blessing, and not everybody's rejection is a curse. I'm going to say that again. Not everybody's acceptance is a blessing, and not everybody's rejection is a curse. Caleb didn't look in the natural mirror. You know what? He was, after 45 years in the wilderness, he was about 85, I think.
85 years old, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing at 85, he wasn't looking real sharp. He probably wasn't in the best physical condition. But he didn't let the wilderness get inside of him. He still had a fighting spirit. He said, you know, I still want what God has for me. I still want that promised land. And those circumstances that he went through didn't make him weaker. It made him stronger. And we don't have to look in the mirror of other people's opinions, because Caleb could have said, here's what he could have said about himself. He could have said, you know what, I'm a failure. I couldn't motivate those people to move forward. I couldn't do it. You know, he wasn't ashamed by being in the wilderness. I think sometimes we go through a struggle and it makes us feel ashamed. Caleb wasn't ashamed by the wilderness, and he wasn't even shamed by the mistakes he made. But we keep looking in the mirror of those mistakes. And when we look at a natural mirror, you know, we see an image of ourselves, but did you know we see that image actually is an image in reverse? Right? When you look at yourself, you're actually seeing a reverse image. And you know, that's really the image that God sees us through. He actually sees us in reverse. He sees, you know, the Bible tells us he sees what? The end from the beginning. We see life from beginning to end. So we see things in chronological order, right? But he doesn't see that. He starts at the end, and he starts there. But we're stuck at the beginning. But Isaiah 46:10 says, "Only I can tell you the future before it happens, and everything I plan will come to pass." God doesn't see your life like you see your life. He sees it in reverse. If he already sees you free, because he set you free, so even when you don't feel free, he's still going to say that you're free, because he's prophesying to you from the finish line. I like your ringtone. He's prophesying to you from the finish line, and he's calling things that are not as though they are. Because we're in the season of sometimes of the are not, but he's in the season of they were.
Yeah, the word is a mirror for you to see yourself as the image of God. And that's hard sometimes. You know, for a long time, I looked at the mirror of other people's opinions, looked to them for acceptance. Even in ministry, I thought of myself as inferior to others. I tried to measure up to them because I was looking at the mirror of others. It led to insecurity, and I lacked the ability to step up and to do what God really wanted me to do, was calling me to do. The plan He had for me. I mean, even tonight, there was a time when I would have felt like I wasn't measuring up. I mean, Lori shared the bulk of the message tonight. Did you notice that? And we were even talking about it, and you know, usually how we've done this and approached this series is we both kind of come to the table with what we had, and she sent me her notes, and I was actually, Scott was driving, and Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, I don't know, I think we were in Nebraska, and I was reading through this, and I'm like, dang, she just pretty much wrote this message. I think she just needs to share it. And I told her, she said, what do you think? I said, well, I think it's there. You've just taken the time. She said, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, no, don't be sorry. And the only reason I say that is because until I finally realized I was looking at the wrong mirror, that would have bothered me. It doesn't bother me anymore, because instead of looking at the mirror of others, I started looking at what God said about me. What God's plan and purpose was inside of me. I started doing what He prompted me to do. Instead of trying to be Pastor Larry and the author and great speaker and try to mimic what he does, or be even Paul Yeagle, who's so good at mechanics and all of those things, instead of trying to be someone else, God didn't call me to be Pastor Larry. Now I thank God for that. Because He only created one Pastor Larry. And He only created one Kevin. And everybody else said amen, especially my wife. And He only created one you. And He has a plan and a purpose just for you. And when I finally realized that, not only did it start leading me to the kind of success that I was seeking in some ways, it also led me to a life of joy and fulfillment. Because no longer did I have to measure up, I just had to be me. And being you is kind of the easy stuff. Isn't it? Are you with me right now? You smell what I'm stepping in? I can just get up here and do and be just me because that's what God called me to be. And there's going to be some people out there like yourselves that love me, and some people that don't like me. And that's not my fault or my problem. Because God created me to be me, and that's the best me that I can be. And guess what? It's the best you that you can be too. But when we try to measure up by looking at others, or looking through those negative core beliefs that I'm subpar, that's when we miss it. And we step out of what God has for us, and we get into that ditch that keeps us out of not only God's best, but God's perfect plan for you. So many people I see, honestly, just being totally honest, so many people I see as a pastor that just struggle to just live right, to just, it's almost like they rededicate their life every Sunday. And they stay there. And I feel my heart breaks for them because I think of so much more that God has for them. And yet so many of those are not making the mistakes and messing up because they're bad people. It's because they don't see themselves the way God sees them. I'm here to tell you that God sees you as worthy. God sees you as worthy enough that He would send His Son to die on that cross just for you. Not only does He see you worthy, God sees you and calls you to a plan that He has just for you, tailored and fit. Just for you. There's only one plan for Jeff Ice. No one else has it. There's only one plan for Daniel Black. No one else has it. There's only one plan for Jennifer Winfrey. No one else has that plan. And we can go through the room and I can name all of you and say the same thing. Well, no, I can't, because some of you, I actually don't know your names. I'd love to meet you. There's a few newer faces in here that I haven't recognized. Instead of looking at the mirror of others, start looking at what God says about you. To understand that God has gifts in you, and God also has gifts in others. Not only have I become content with the plan God has for me, I've become aware of the gifts God has placed in others. And it's made me realize we need each other. We work best as a team. And when I realize that, man, it takes the load and pressure off. I don't have to worry about performing anymore. And I don't know, that's the only bad thing about Caleb that I got probably from music is, there's performances. And sometimes we can take that over into life and we feel like we need to perform. And I'm telling you guys, you don't. Just be you. And when you are just you operating in the plan and the purpose that God has for you, His performance will flow through you and out of you. It takes a lot of pressure off of you when you realize you are just a glass. Nothing more, nothing less. You're just a glass. And He wants to use you as that glass to fill you full of Him. And it's not just for your pleasure, but He wants you to fill you up so full that it flows out of you and pours out to the others around you. So just tonight, I don't mean this in a belittling way, but I mean it in a way that we don't have to be so caught up in all the things that I'm doing wrong. Self-help books are great. Read them, apply them, but then throw them away, because really you don't have to worry about the pressure of you performing. All you have to do is show up and let God do the rest. The most amazing things that I've seen happen in my life was just because I was at the right place at the right time. One of the most amazing things in my life found me studying for an exam at Rhema Bible Training Center in a back alley a block from where I worked. And a guy happened to come up to me and ask, "What are you doing?" Good question. Told him my story. He began pouring out his life. A life hooked on drugs. A life full of regret. And I prayed for him. Led him back to someone at our campus who was able to disciple him, because I was a kid who didn't know I had the potential in me to do it myself yet. But God used me. Even in my insecurities, even my lack of knowledge, He used me. And guess what? He'll use you too. So tonight, as we wrap this up, Someone from the band is coming up. I don't know who. We're going to sing this song. The worship team's going to help us out. And it's a song that I just love the words. I wrote down just a couple of them for you to hear before we sing them. That says, I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. How many can relate? Don't raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. The only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth. In you I find my identity. Taking all I have, and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God. You have every victory. You say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short, when I don't belong. You say I am yours. Tonight, I want this time to be a time where I pray that tonight we could just give space to Him in this place. And I'd love to see as many people that need to be at this altar. You know, there's nothing bad about this place. It's a place where God takes your offering, and guess what He does with it? He burns it. And it comes back to you as a sweet aroma of His presence. So tonight, as we sing this song together, I want to open up the altar right now for anyone that says tonight, I just want to lay down all of my insecurities, all of my lacks, all of my disappointments, and I just come to you tonight, God. Wanting just you. Wanting to be held. If that's you in this place and you say, I'm tired of feeling like I'm always falling short, would you not come up here and meet Lori, nor I, nor the band? Would you come up here and just meet and have a little conversation with God as we sing this song?